Good. So could you just tell me a bit how you came up with this idea to travel by bikes and what was the whole inspiration behind it?
Yeah, I'll let you start.
Okay. So a few years ago, we were thinking to making a world trip together, and of course, every idea start like with a little brainstorm session, and we were talking about it, and we were just saying to each other, like, wouldn't it be fun if we could make a world trip on a more slow and sustainable way? So not taking several flights for 1 year, for example. And then all of a sudden, Niels came up with the idea like, couldn't we do it by bicycle? And I was like, by bike? Are you nuts? I didn't grab the idea in the beginning, to be honest. But then I read a book about it, and we did like a 2-day cycling trip. And I was like, yeah, this could be fun. And then, 4 months later, we bought the bikes, and we decided to do it by bicycle. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, what was the book? Is there a book on this?
It's a very beautiful book. It calls 1 Year on a Bike, from Martijn Dolaert. It's a Dutch
guy.
Dutch guy. Yeah.
He traveled from Rotterdam to Singapore by bike.
Yeah.
Impressive. And he was just sharing his.
He shares a story, and I was how he wrote about it. I was like, okay, traveling by bike, is of course one of the most sustainable ways to travel, and it's a slow way, and it's also very cultural, I would say, because you meet a lot of people along the way, and all those things. This sounds appealing to me. So I was like, okay, we should try it, but because I was very scared in the beginning, because I really thought it's just something for athletes to do. You have to be in very good physical conditions. But I just realized that you just train yourself along the way. So I never rode like a bicycle in
Belgium.
I did it for commuting, to go to work or whatever, but I never cycled more than maybe 50 kilometers in a day. And that's the beautiful thing about traveling by bike. You just train yourself along the way. You start really slow. You start with days of 50 kilometers, and suddenly you can cycle 100 kilometers a day. You get stronger every day. So that's really nice about it.
So the advice is just to start. Just need to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just grab your bike and start.
Just cycle, just go. That's great. How, like, is sustainability a part of your life, of your everyday life, when you are not on bikes?
Yeah, I think so. I think we do. I think both of us look at sustainability as, I don't know, I think it covers more or multiple surfaces. It's not only the traveling part, but it's also trying to live and eat healthy, or the way how people live their lives, build their homes. I think something is only sustainability when you can keep up with it for a longer period of time. For example, like while traveling, we also need our rest days, or we also take public buses or some trains sometimes, which is maybe less sustainable than cycling all the time. But that way we can like keep the bike as our main method of transportation. And I think in our daily lives, it's been a while now since we had like a normal daily life. But we're very busy, especially I think when it comes down to food. We try to eat like plant-based as much of the time. We try to only buy stuff we really need. Like we try to minimize our consumer behavior in general. And we believe that like very little changes can make a very big difference for everyone.
That's true, of course, but what are the biggest challenges on this way then, especially when you travel?
I think while traveling, we sometimes, I think like many people, get frustrated sometimes when it comes down to transport. I think first of all, there's communication in transport, which is still very unclear. Like, can you take the bikes on the bus? Can you take it on the train? If so,
do you need to reserve a spot,
yeah.
or do you need to pay extra? Sometimes the prices for train tickets, unfortunately they are ridiculous expensive if you compare it with the prices of flight tickets. So yeah, I think that's something. Yeah,
I think that's one frustration. I think what's difficult as well is like we realize we are more the exception to the rule, and you can notice that in how people look upon the way we are living our lives. So that can be a challenge sometimes, and I think it's important to not feel attacked by those people, but I think it's more people just wonder like how can they do that and why do they do that, and I think they're just very curious. And I think it also comes down to that there's just not enough information about sustainability in general. So people just ask those questions because they actually don't have the information to like grasp the idea about it. Yeah.
And do you mean you are asked by your community on Instagram or just friends and your circle?
Yeah. Yeah, we get questions like from everywhere. Like on Instagram, we get a lot of questions about it. In general, I have to say I'm surprised that how friendly they all are. You sometimes have exceptions to that, but I think in general, everyone respects like the way we are living our lives on Instagram, and they're just very curious about it, or we get a reaction a lot like, "Oh, I wish I could do that,
but I'm scared to do it." Or I'm too old to do it. That's also a thing we hear a lot. But then on the road, we've met people who are traveling by bicycle, who are in their 60s or 70s, or sometimes we met someone. She was 85, and she was still traveling by bicycle. So, or with children, a lot of people say, I wish we could do that, but we have children, so it's not possible. But it's all a mindset. Like if you really want to, everything is possible.
And I think there's a big difficulty in there because you meet all these inspiring people along the road. And when you come back home, like you have your close friends and family, but they are living their lives like more standard. And I think we just look at the world in a different way after these last 3 years. And I think that will be a big challenge for us. And we've been home for 2 months in between, and we just had to answer a lot of questions about, so what you're gonna do for work now, and isn't it time you start thinking about your retirement, and isn't it time to buy a house or to like start children? And that's something we are not really that occupied with, and that's a challenge, of course.
This peer pressure and also family pressure, but how do you try to communicate your values via media or just verbally in communication? Are you trying, or you just do your way and
I think we mostly do our way, but I think doing our way means to also be very open and honest about it. I think that's also one of the reasons why we get so many positive reactions on Instagram, for example, because we also communicate the hard days on the bike. And at the moment, we're also communicating a little bit the fear we have about returning back home. And we feel a lot of community by others that way. And we realize that it's not only us, but there's more people struggling with fitting into that like standardized society, what everyone thinks a life should look like. yeah, and that all brings us together, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, a sense of belonging, that you're not alone, you're part of this community. Yeah, and so in terms of the level, how comfortable it is to travel by bikes, what comes to mind when you think of your stay in ANO?
It's really nice when we arrived here, because we had a rainy day when we were riding into Salzburg. So yeah, we packed our tent in the morning, wet, and we were completely soaked. And when you know there is a warm bed waiting for us, and it really makes you happy. So yeah, we really loved our stay here. It's like the check-in was really smooth. The people were so friendly. They knew that we were coming by bike, and they immediately said that we could put our bikes in the room. What's really important for us as well, because yeah, we have so much stuff on the bikes, and it's like the only thing we own at the moment. So we don't want to lose stuff, and we want to keep it close. And it was like so smooth to just arrive in the hostel. We didn't have to take chairs, or we could just stairs. We could just take the elevator. What's also very nice, like for people who are like in a wheelchair or something, if they wanted to stay in your hostel, it's just very accessible. So yeah, it was nice.
It's very easy. It's especially like taking the bikes in the room. It's not a must if you're traveling by bike, but if you're staying multiple nights at one place, like if you do a long-term tour, you have so many little attachments and little bags to your bike that if you have to put your bike somewhere else, you have to take them off all the time and carry it upstairs and change it. So this is very convenient. Yeah, like Stefanie said, the staff was really welcoming when we arrived, and the hostel looked really clean. So yeah, we were surprised in a good way. Like I think we communicated we didn't know the hostel before you contacted us, and we looked into your website, and I think it's very good the way you are also like starting to communicate the green sign and the goals you want to reach by 2025. And yeah, I think it's really cool, because there's a lot of like little companies who are good at communicating it, but you don't really see it that much yet in like hostel chains that it's happening. So that's really, it's a really big thumbs up, I think, for ANO. Yeah.
Step by step through it, just little by little. That's what we're trying to do. And do you have any ideas, maybe what else you would, I don't know, love to see, for example, in our hostel, or in general when you travel by bike, when you try to travel sustainably?
I think like it might be like, I don't know, of course, how many, like every hostel is probably still shares the same values, but there's probably still differences maybe between Salzburg and a hostel in Berlin or Copenhagen. I think when it comes down to like, if you want to attract people traveling by bicycle, I think you have to, like, not many people know sometimes how basic it can be. So we are used to setting up tents, we are used to eating cold oatmeal or crackers in the morning, and this is pure luxury. And I think maybe just like communicating a way for like slow travel where you really emphasize things like a good, maybe even discounted or free breakfast that's always included for bicycle travelers, that would really attract a lot of bike-friendly people. And you have the advantage, you have so many hostels all over Europe. There's maybe even an idea in the long run to, like, there's so many cycling paths in Europe, to like combine an ANO 1 week, 2 week, 4 week bicycle trip or something like that. I think that would be a really smart idea.
It's also just very nice, like when we were traveling in Canada and the United States, for example, when you have like campgrounds there, you always have like hiker and biker campsite, so you get a discount.
Mhm.
It would be something nice for the hostel as well if you traveled sustainable to the hostel, so not taking a plane to the city, but if you arrived by bike or by foot or even by train,
Mhm.
it would be maybe nice to give them a discount for their effort because they traveled in a sustainable way to the
Mhm.
hostel. But yeah, when we arrived in the room, we immediately noticed already quite
Mhm.
some good stuff, like there is not daily
Cleaning.
cleaning in the room, which is not necessary because at home you don't clean your room
Every day,
daily.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's nice that you can just easily make a reservation if you want that your room gets cleaned. Also, like the soap dispensers in the bathroom, that you don't work with like small packages.
Mhm.
It's nice to see. What for us, what we think that could be or
Like room for improvement.
like room for improvement could maybe be the breakfast, I would say. I think there it would be nice if there would be more vegetarian or vegan options, or that it at least like that the vegetarian and vegan options are more than the meat options.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your ideas. Thank you for your feedback. And I think there are some definitely thoughts for us to consider. And I think we can discuss everything you've told us. And yeah, as a closing question, the last question, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in sustainable travel but doesn't know where to start? Of course, you said already, just go, just do, but maybe something else that could give some confidence in this step.
Yeah, I think there might be two things. I think the first thing is like start start little. Like don't think about sustainable travel or bike traveling or hiking.
That it has to be something really big. Or
Yeah.
You can just do it like for a weekend, like 2 days that you just take your bike, that you cycle to somewhere and stay somewhere overnight and then just go back home and just see how that goes.
Yeah, like in Belgium, for example, there's like outdoor companies where you can lend outdoor stuff for a few days or a week without having to do the big investment in a new tent or cycling gear or all of that stuff. So I think it's a good way to like get a feeling to it, to just try out a short trip. And I think the second part is talk to other people, like get inspired, read blogs, buy a book, go to presentations, and there's so many, like, it would be such a shame if you dream about doing something like this, but you're too afraid to do it. And I think most of it has to do with like staying too much in your comfort zone. So if you just go out and talk to others with the same dreams, I think you realize there's so many more people out there who want to do the same thing. So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, again, we're here talking about community, right? So everyone needs some community, this sense of belonging.
Yeah.
All right. All right. That was really nice to talk to you. Thank you so much.